again. Vonta Leech, let me go to you. Reeta's here too, of course, and we're going to go to Reeta next. Vonta, I said it's one of the more unfathomable losses in recent Ravens history, and I truly feel that way. It's one of the most unfathomable things I've ever seen because of all the layers of this. I guess, what are your biggest takeaways from what actually occurred? Because I feel like, as I was saying, it's a number of things that we can point to that end up being part of the story.
Yes, it was a number of things. I felt like we were controlling the game. I felt like at first we were controlling the game. We had right where we wanted to be. We had that fumble. After we picked up good yardage on the screenplay, we had the fumble. It seemed once we had that fumble, things just went trickling down. I mean, we had another fumble. We had a ball snap when Lamar wasn't ready. Just a lot of things that just steamrolled into, the loss. I still think with all that stuff, I still think our defense played pretty good. I still think we had a chance to win the game still.
Multiple chances to win the game.
Multiple chances to win the game. Then at the end of the game, then regulation, I don't think, we gave them more time to score. With us not running that ball, not taking no time off the clock when they kicked the ball off, and it's still at 2:01. That gave them an extra timeout. They got the ball back. It was 1:41, so wanted to burn 22 seconds right there. So it was a lot of things that took place. So it was just crazy loss. It was just one of those games today.
Unfathomable. I keep coming back to just unfathomable. Reeta, your biggest takeaways today?
The Ravens have a turnover problem, and it clearly changed the momentum shift in this game, starting with Kenyon Drake. Lamar, correct me if I'm wrong, has fumbled in every single game, at least 2 of 3 at minimum. He's fumbled in at least 2 of 3 games. That is problematic. And once Kenyon Drake fumbled, it really felt like that defensive front, which already is talented. I think that that's something that we all know. But at first, the Ravens were manhandling them. And then once the turnover happened, it felt like a light switch came on for them on the defensive front. And then they just started clicking. So this is why things like turnovers are so important, because I don't recall them scoring off the Kenyon Drake fumble, doesn't matter. It's points off the board. They should have at minimum got 3 points out of that situation. And then they ended up with nothing. And then it just did nothing but give the momentum to the Colts. So for me, they have a turnover. They have a fumbling problem, dog. And they need to find a way to fix this, because it is hurting this team. It is hurting the momentum of this team. It is just something that they cannot continue to do if they want to win football games moving forward. You can't give the defensive side of the ball any type of life and start showing back up because you can't hold on to the ball.
The weird part is, like, I know all of this, every single layer of what you said is true, and yet they still should have won this game. And if they just win the game, then you can survive. And I feel like, Vonta, we would be having that conversation. We would say all these same things. They'd all be relevant, but then we'd come back and be like,
yes.
Exactly right. But they won. And so what? It was, I don't even know how to describe what it was like I was watching at the end. It was like watching them attempt to climb a mountain with no arms at the end of the game. Like, there were 8 different things that if you could just do this one thing, all would be good, right? Like, you can, and we would go back and we would say, hey, the bigger stories of the game were how many times in Ravens history have all 7 inactives on game day been starters? How many times has that ever occurred where you had 7 game day inactives? And at some point, we're going to have to start having conversations about, guys that weren't put on IR versus guys that were, and how that plays out. But it seemed like they were trying to do the right thing by waiting, because they didn't know it was going to balloon to being 7 starters that would all be inactive for a football game. And so you can live with, in context, hey, look, if you're missing 7 starters and you're playing in slop, you could live with an ugly win, right? You can live with, man, that wasn't pretty. It was, you're not going to get any, points, and you're going to find yourself saying, boy, you got to do things better, but you live with that when you win. for it to have gone that way, it just felt like panic. And where, Ken always wants to go after John Harbaugh, and we're never going to agree on that, and that's the way that it works. There is something to be said for it felt like all you needed was anything to settle things down there, and nothing ever did. Reeta, your point about them not looking right after the Kenyon Drake fumble, 100% true. They were the next 4 possessions were disastrous, but they got it figured out. They did things they needed to, and they had no business being in that position. I think Vontae's point to me is the one that I can't shake the most. You know how much time is on the clock. They can't. The broadcast crew kept talking about, I can't believe they're punting the ball away. Well, what do you think are you going to lay the ball on the ground and attempt an onside kick from a ball that's laying on the ground? Like, is that the thought process there? So you knew as soon as they send the punter out, all right, they're punting. All we got to do is make sure this clock gets to 2 minutes. Come hell or high water, that clock has to hit 2 minutes. I first of all, couldn't believe they didn't punt the ball out of bounds in an attempt to make sure the Ravens did. And I don't know if everybody just assumed that was going to be the thought process, so there was no conversation. It's unfathomable to me. And I'm sure that whatever happened, John Harbaugh will say, well, that's on us. It is, of course, on the coaching staff. But at the same time, I don't care if you're a rookie. I don't care how long you've been in the league. That you don't know how much time is on the clock, and that you have to catch that ball and take 3 seconds. 3 seconds off the clock. It's one of the most inexcusable things I've ever seen. Like,
Glenn,
it is.
Glenn, it's just a miscommunication. It's okay.
It's fine. I know, Ken. I know they'll say that. I understand it, but I don't even care. Honest to God, even if the coach is effed up, even if for whatever reason nobody thought to say anything, you're on the field in an NFL game. In that situation, you've got to know the circumstances. You've got to be able to go get 3 yards. Vonta, you tell me, because I certainly never played at that level. Well, I would think there's conversation as they go out there.
Well, it's situational football. There's some stuff that come up, that comes up to a game. You can't cover everything that sometimes comes up in the game. I don't know if they had a talk with that before it went out or not. I can't say it, but I say it got to go with the player and the coach. You got to do a little bit of blame on both sides, because somebody should have reminded. If it won't talked about, somebody should have reminded. Somebody should have said something. Hey, we got to get this thing up under 2 minutes once you get the ball and stuff. So.
For what it's worth, John Harbaugh has already addressed it post-game. John Harbaugh, this is according to Jeff Zrebiec's Twitter, said the plan was to fair catch the free kick when the clock was under 2 minutes. When they added the time on the clock, they tried to communicate to players to not auto fair catch it, but not everyone got the message.
See, that's what I said. It's something you got to communicate. I mean, stuff they did have more time on it, but that's something you have to communicate. If they said before they ran out there to fair catch it up under the fair catching and stuff, and add more time, it should have been relayed to the receiver, to the punt returner first. That not because he's going to be the one that catches the ball. Somebody should have been screaming and hollering at him.
I'm trying to understand how does this become a situation of like it's not communicated. You're the coach. You're the head coach.
You're
like I'm trying to understand how that happens.
Well, he the head coach. He's not a special team coach. He's not a special team coach. He might have related to the special team coach. Did the special team coach relay it, or did either some other players relay it? Some way the message got broke up. They won't relay.
That's the part that I think. Okay, we don't have to put that on Harbs if we like, because there is a special team.
No, I'm just saying there is a special teams quarter. Some kind of way it didn't get relayed. I don't know who fault it was, but it didn't get relayed.
Right.
And it get relayed.
Okay,
and stuff.
Vonta, but let me go back for a second though. But so does any of that fall on Zay though? Like again, we're talking about a rookie. Does any of that fall on him to be aware of the game circumstance? And even if there wasn't a coach screaming at him, bro, don't fair catch it, Is there any of that where he needs to look up and say, wait, there's 2:03 on the clock. I thought there was 1:59. I better make sure I run those 3 seconds off of there.
Well, if they change their mind now, somebody got relayed because he's just thinking what they said in the huddle, just catch it. And if they won't relay now, I can't blame that on him who won't relay.
Okay. All right. That's fair. That's fair. If he was
it's just like Lamar going out there calling the run play, and the run play don't work, and they said they wanted to switch the play, but it didn't get relayed.
That part I can't escape that. Like just giving a team a timeout, and obviously they end up giving them 2, of course, because of the penalty, and that's the completely disastrous, cannot happen type of situation. As far as the Carson, if you want to go ahead and take that tweet down, we got it. I appreciate it. And Trippy is with us. Trippy is at the game, and I am imagining it's not quite. Trippy, you got to unmute yourself real quick because.
No, man, I'm right. My bad, y'all. What's up with y'all? You know, I'm already upset the Ravens losing, and you got security like this. You know what I mean? Hey, Ro. See, look, my man Ro mad. See, they mad, man. I know what's going on, man. Like, look, I ain't gonna lie. Y'all want to hear my opinion because I ain't gonna lie. I'm pissed off right now. Because you know what?
What are you pissed off about, though, specifically, Trippy? What are you pissed off about?
Sugar honey iced tea all the time. We playing a low competition team, and here we go. I know it was raining, but damn, like I just don't understand. We turn the ball over, then we have an opportunity. Then I don't even know what they said on TV, but on that last play, like did Zay Flowers get help? Like what's going on? Like I don't understand. Like it's the same old crap. Say it again.
Hey buddy. Hey buddy. I appreciate you, man. We'll come back to you in a minute. You want to say?
My bad.
You're good, bro. We'll come back to you in a minute. That's our guy.
So listen. The Zay Flowers play obviously was blatant, but I am not going to get into the business of start using the refs as scapegoats. First and foremost, like the league does have to do something about blatant calls. I don't know what they're going to do. They probably.
I know, but this goes back. We don't talk about this enough. The hilarity of this. The league wanted to rewrite everything about the way the game was played 3 years ago because of that Saints, Rams debacle 4 years ago. God, it might be 5 years ago now, whatever it was. Yep. And now we're in a place where once again, that could happen in the Super Bowl, what happened today.
Yes,
an
absolutely.
Obvious, unfathomable missed call, and all the league would be able to do is shrug emoji. That's it.
And you're right. But my thing, my fear about that is that at the end of the day, these fans are out here fighting each other. They're belligerent. They're drunk. And so at some point, the safety of these referees are going to start coming into play. So I would like to see them try to make some changes, because if y'all think that they just going to be continuing to out here fighting each other, you're wrong, okay? They don't stop this liquor to the fourth quarter. They leaving these games drunk. You don't think they're going to do something to these guys? And that to me is a hazard. That being said, I'm not about to sit here and blame what happened today on what happened in that non-call. There's a couple of non-calls. There's a face mask that didn't get called.
Blatant.
I mean, there's a couple of non-calls.
Blatant.
Yeah. And so, but my thing is that the Ravens can't allow the refs to dictate whether you're going to win games or not. You have to execute. You have to coach properly. That is on you to do those things properly. They didn't stop Isaiah Likely from not catching the ball. They didn't stop Lamar from throwing it behind Zay Flowers for a first down. Fundamental things that were missing in the crunch time, or Todd Monken on 4th and 3, essentially spreading them out again and probably allowing Lamar to pick up the first down. These are things that probably should have happened, didn't happen, and now we're having a conversation about the refs because that's the easy way out. And I'm not about to do that.
But I think it can all be true, though, right? It can all be true.
Yes,
it can,
both things can be true. Yes,
right.
You're right.
Right. It can all be true that they both blatantly missed calls, and there is no reason why this game should have been in that situation.
Absolutely.
You're right.
Today's show, by the way, is brought to you by Superbook Sports. And maybe you're not feeling so great today, but good news, I can give you up to $250 worth of free bets. All you got to do is go to superbook.com or download the Superbook app. And when you do, use the code GlennClark23. That's GlennClark23. And then you make a same-day first bet. You will be matched, win or lose, up to $250 tonight. The Raiders are 3-point favorites against the Steelers. If you think Pittsburgh's defense is up to the task, then I would get to superbook.com or download the Superbook app right now. I'm going to try to separate, and we can come back to the individual things because we'll be able to talk about these eternally, right? Vonta, I want you to try to be big picture with me.
Go ahead.
This is a disastrous loss today. Today, it's unfathomable. Today, I mean, it's as bad as it could possibly be. How much does this really matter big picture, right? Like, we know all the circumstances. We know they're without 7 starters, for the most part, who are all slated to come back, right? J.K. Dobbins is the only player that we know that's not going to be back. It stinks to lose at home in the NFL ever. It certainly stinks to lose to what we think is a bad team. But does this tell us all that much about the Ravens as a team versus it being one game, one day?
Well, a couple of things. We're bad as we play. We're bad as we had 7 players out. Bad as we play horrible. We still had a chance to win this game towards the end of the game in regulation and in overtime. We had several chances to win the game. So what that tells me we got a really good football team. We just got to learn to cut some mistakes that we've been doing now, and I think we'll be fine. We'll be all right. We got a good football team. It's not time to panic. It's time to just stay the course, and I think we're going to be all right.
What do you? I'll go around the table with that. I'm going to go around the table. I'm going to save KZ for last, though, because obvious reasons. Reeta.
I think they'll be okay. Listen,
Yeah.
I felt like that this team was going to have a slow start offensively because of all the new parts that were added to it. And so in this situation, while I was wrong in terms of like the new parts adding into it, it's now become the injury part added to it, right? You don't have the left tackle. And I love Makari, but he struggled today. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Mustafa has been great, but you would have preferred to have your starting center, no Odell, and then Gus Edwards losing him. So now it's the injury situation as opposed to the chemistry situation. So I think that they will be fine. Once they start getting their guys back, they'll be okay. But I always thought that in the beginning of the season, they would probably start slow and then pick up as the season goes on. But maybe my reasoning for why is wrong, as opposed to them just trying to get the collective parts all together. Now it's more so the injury bug that's affected them early on. And then maybe folks will start getting healthy and they could get on the road.
All right. Before I get to the rest of the group, I'm going to pull in our guy, Troy, because I love Troy, and he always goes out of his way to say hello to us, and he's chimed in. Troy, what's going on, buddy?
GC crew, how y'all doing? Thank you for taking me on.
Absolutely, pal. How you feeling?
All right. We lost.
Yeah.
Inexcusable loss of that. But like you said earlier, 7 stars are out. Most of them pretty much on them with stars. I mean, what are you gonna do about it? End of the day,
it's tough because I'm in the line between these two things, right? Like we're trying to solve this feels awful. It feels wretched today.
And then I'm sorry, I cut you off, Glenn.
Go ahead, buddy.
The next 3 games, they're really gonna be tough. You're going to Cleveland, you're gonna walk the pitch for a week, and then you've got to take a really, really long trip to London to meet Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want to lose games like this when you know you got to be on the road for what, 3 weeks, 4 weeks at that? Good luck with that.
It's brutal, man. It's brutal. Troy, I appreciate you, buddy. It's good to hear from you. Good to hear from you, pal.
Thank you.
Andrew Stecca, I'm going to go to you because we haven't heard from you yet. You're up next. What is the line between this is a disastrous loss versus what does it tell us about the Ravens?
I think you kind of summed it up in the beginning of this whole little diatribe pretty well. Like, it's disastrous today, but in the long run, this just feels like a game that the Ravens drop once or twice a season in the last, handful of years. Like I'd say in the Lamar era, like they tend to lose. I mean, 2019 is kind of an outlier to that because of what that season was, but all the other seasons to me feel like this is a game that they tend to lose sometimes. And I'm not looking at it as disastrous or a sign of, worse things to come down the road. I think they can only, knock on wood, you feel like at this point they can only get healthier as a team with everything that they've sustained through the first 3 weeks. I just feel like the only thing that kind of makes me a little bit weary is the schedule. Like it's not very favorable over the next 5 to 6 weeks.
It's not favorable at all, Andrew.
It's
that's
not.
the problem. That's the issue. The issue is
it's not, but I also say like Glenn and I were talking a little bit about this earlier. Like I'm not, they beat what I think is going to turn out to be a decent Texans team. I know they got a rookie quarterback and like a rough offensive line, but like, and then I don't know what the Colts are going to be. Like some of these losses that we think in the moment are like disastrous. We don't always know that. The Colts might turn out to be a decent team when all is said and done. The NFL is so weird like that you don't ever really know. You come in with a lot of preconceived notions about what a team is or should be. I don't know, man. The Colts might be like 10-7 in the AFC South champions this year for all I know. That division's garbage. And while we wouldn't really be that threatened by them in the playoffs, that might be a playoff team that they just barely lost a game at home to in a slog of rain, like a lot of circumstances going against them. I can't like go panic about this loss just because it feels too familiar to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little too zen about like feeling this way about certain losses over the last handful of seasons at this point, because I'm so kind of used to them. I try not to look at them as disastrous, but like at the same time, you got to turn around and play 2 really tough division games in the next 2 weeks. Then you got to travel across the pond to play a game in London. Then you come back and you've got, I don't know what the Lions are, but they obviously present a challenge. There's tough weeks ahead. So that like right the ship, but I'm not like hitting any kind of panic button after this.
Can I come?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead,
Point. Jacksonville, I believe, lost today, so they're 1-2.
Yeah, frankly, they got their butts kicked too.
Yeah, that's a team that a lot of us thought would handedly win the division, and as of right now, even with all the parts that they have, they're not looking too good. So I agree. Maybe this is the ass kicking that they need to move forward and say we got to play better and we got to step up and do better.
Let me come back for a second. And KZ, before I come to you, I want to ask Vonta something, because we've brought up the conditions a couple of times today. The easiest thing to say is, well, hey, both teams have to play in those conditions, right? It's not like the Ravens were playing in miserable conditions and the Colts are playing on an indoor fast track. Both teams are playing in miserable conditions. So how much do you excuse what you saw offensively from the conditions the Ravens were playing in versus saying, nah, dog, like you knew what the circumstances were going to be. It's inexcusable.
Yeah, well, both teams did have to play in that condition, but looked like the Colts played better than we did in the position, and we used to playing outside and doing different stuff, It just comes to a matter of fact, we just got to take care of the ball in these conditions and stuff. I mean, looked like they were more prepared in the conditions than we was. They took care of the ball, didn't have really turnovers and everything else. So
I hear you. All right. I'll give that question back. Ken Zales, what does this tell us between this just being one loss, one day, things didn't go well, versus it being a story about who the Baltimore Ravens are?
I'm sort of in between all this, because like I said earlier, and I agree with what Andrew just said, to me, this is a very familiar loss over the last, 5-6 years. And maybe it's because these losses resonate so much with us because they're just inexcusable that maybe it's not as bad as we're just thinking about. But this loss seems familiar, and we can blame the weather all we want, but you just lost to a dome team in the elements with a backup quarterback who's not very good. And so it could be disastrous because, before the season, we all like to do the fun thing of, well, that's a win and that's a win. And, maybe after 4 weeks, if they go to Cleveland and beat the Browns and you're 3-1, then it's not a bad loss, because after 4 weeks, I think we all probably said, well, if they're at least 3-1, we felt really good about everything going into Steeler week and then going, to London where, they have bad memories. But, this is a tough schedule. We don't know what the Lions are, but they can put up some points, going to Arizona. But this could be disastrous at the end of the season. And I hope it's not. I hope it's just one of those games. And this is still a 10-7, 11-6, 12-5 type playoff team. But it really depends on how they come back next week. If they look the same it could be a bad weather game next week at Cleveland. That field's always a mess anyway, even in good weather. Then it's a horrible loss. If you're 2-2 after next week, it's an absolutely devastating loss. So I think you got to see what you do next week. And I hate to be like that because we want to, live right now, but we may have to look back after, week 8 and kind of figure out where you are and say,
no,
hey,
remember
when you gave away the game against the Colts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you had just gotten that one, that might be the difference in the division.
Right. I just feel like I hope it's not. I hope we don't look back at it like that. I hope they come back and they're ready to play next week and the turnovers are taken care of a little bit in practice this week and you get some healthy bodies back. But this gets ugly if you lose at Cleveland next week. I hate to say it because by the way, the Steelers are better than everybody wants to ever talk about.
They're definitely not. That part you're 100. Their offense is putrid.
Stop. That defense is terrific.
My God,
that defense is terrific.
Yeah, but it's okay. They're changing Matt Canada's
fine.
role.
Right. Yeah, they're giving Matt Canada more power. Right.
I
yeah.
know the Steelers. Okay. So the Steelers aren't that good, but you just lost to a dome team with a backup quarterback. Come on,
Ken, you're saying two different things. Like nobody's suggesting.
I'm just saying that these aren't easy games coming up. Divisional games never are.
I agree with that part.
I've seen Steeler games where they're coming in with a backup quarterback and we're barely winning 17-14.
I agree with that aspect of it. I just don't agree with trying to pretend like the Steelers are something they aren't.
I don't think they're I don't think they're as bad as everybody's making them out to be because they have a legit defense, in my opinion.
That part we agree about.
Okay. So I look at Canada stinks. He's stunk forever, but we whatever. But I just hope I hope we don't look back in 5 weeks and say, that game against the Colts really going to bite us in the ass.
So I think it's very likely that we're going to say that a couple times this season because you don't get much separation in the NFL, right?
Here's the thing, right? But here's the thing, guys. Then you swap. How many people had them beating the Bengals last week? So yes, while you're not wrong, probably people had them at 2-1 anyway at this point. So
it's the NFL though. Like this stuff happens all the time. You mentioned earlier, like Jacksonville might not be what they are. Well, Houston beat the snot out of them.
Houston beat the snot out of them today.
And the Ravens handled Houston week 1. Like this, it's the NF freaking L. Like this stuff happens. The Cardinals right now are beating the Cowboys. Who would have seen that? I know it's only been a quarter, but like it's the NFL. These losses happen all the time. I'm way more concerned. Ken mentioned something a minute ago that like really kind of stuck in my brain, talking about the conditions in the field. I'm starting to wonder if a Greg Roman offense works better in the AFC North versus a Todd Lincoln.
Here we go.
Oh my God!
Here we go.
You're gonna make my freaking head explode.
Wait. Let's talk for a second. Hang on. Let me pause. Let me do some cleanup real quick. Vonta had to duck out. I apologize. He had a family situation pop up. So love Vonta. He'll be back with us throughout the course of the season here on Project Gameday. Also, the show is also brought to you by helpmygamblingproblem.org. Please remember that if you or a loved one has a gambling problem, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER or go to helpmygamblingproblem.org for free confidential services. It's what you brought up to me is, again, it's this line between why I'm not overly concerned about what I saw today, because I do think that a lot of what we saw today was that the Ravens were reluctant to want to have either Kenyon Drake or Melvin Gordon run the ball. And this is the thing that every time we do this, we miss something. And we tried talking about this after week 1, Reeta, was the value of J.K. Dobbins never gets talked about nearly enough because it's so easy for us to say, well, he's hurt. He's always hurt. And this is the way that it works. He just gets hurt. It hurts badly because these are the guys that they don't trust to not turn over the ball.
Yep.
And you can
that's
see
exactly what happened. That's exactly
100% as the game went on, they were afraid to have those guys out there because they were afraid that they were going to turn the ball over. Yep. And so because of that, here we are. It's just all Lamar Jackson running the ball in the second half. It's Lamar. And when we dismiss the idea of acquiring other running backs, when we say no, you shouldn't dip your toes in the Cam Akers waters, or you dismiss the idea of maybe being involved in Jonathan Taylor conversation. The part of it that you're missing is every time we want to keep saying that you can just replace running backs in the NFL with some other running back. We say it ad nauseum, and we believe that the teams feel that way because they don't want to pay any of their running backs. But all of the evidence we have says that any single one of these guys off the street that you just want to pull in and say, well, we can make that guy work too. The Ravens have trotted 8 of them out in the last 3 years, and none of them have worked. Not one. Not a single one of this group has ever worked. And we keep saying this. Running backs are replaceable, and, just put another guy in
No, the
there.
league keeps saying it's you and I and other people that understand values of running backs don't keep saying it. So that's the difference. The difference is that they keep saying it because they don't believe that they're worth the money, when I would disagree, because on 4th and 3, I'm not running that play. I'm going to, if I had a valuable running back, I'm going to give it to my running back on 4th and 3 that I know that can get the first down. But that's just me, right? I'm the one that, I'm not a GM. I don't get to tell people what to do with their money. So it is what it is.
It stung them when Gus Edwards. By the way, we didn't get an update on Gus Edwards, did we? From John, I was searching for that. I don't think we got an update on Gus Edwards, which becomes quite concerning. But
for next week.
I know we all laughed about the Jonathan Taylor conversation. I'm right back to at least having the conversation, because even if Gus Edwards really is just a concussion, and and I hate saying just a concussion because we all know that we're talking about a head injury and head trauma. When we say that, what we're really saying is we don't expect it to be a season-long issue. Even if that's the case, you're still one Gus Edwards injury away from not having a running back again.
Yep.
And so I get it. I'm not suggesting that I'm going to pay the price for Jonathan Taylor that the Colts were asking for, but no one's paying that price. What I'm saying is I'm not removing myself from that conversation or refusing to go that route or saying we can't do this with running backs, because every time this pops up, we're reminded of just how truly valuable the real running backs are. Because the moment you've got to turn to the replacement level running backs, you get the same crap as you always do. They're replacement level for a reason.
Yep. I have nothing to add to that other than the fact that we need to start valuing running backs more, period. Like, we stop using, just because the league has decided that they believe that running backs are dispensable, doesn't mean that you have to believe that, because that's the narrative that they're pushing out there. Clearly, there's a need for running backs. They can do everything. They can pass catch. They can run. They can block. Well, they're good ones do.
Not turn the ball over.
Not turn the ball over. There's
Like
a reason why Kenyon Drake was on the street before this past week.
There's a reason why Melvin Gordon has not been. We all know the talent that Melvin Gordon had.
Melvin Gordon been on the practice squad. Ain't nobody said, I want Melvin Gordon. I need Melvin Gordon. Because they can literally sign him off the practice squad. Nobody picked him up. Nobody.
They know he is prone to turn the ball over. They know that. Everyone knows that is part of Melvin Gordon's story. And here we are again. Yep. And so I don't know what the price will ultimately end up being. And I still don't think the Ravens will be the team to do it. But I'm not eliminating that Jonathan Taylor conversation, even if you're acknowledging that you're not going to sign him. I'm at a price. Let's see. Let's see what it would take to have him, and if he'd be up for it.
All right, Glenn, we ain't let KZ talk, so we got to let him go ahead and say what he wanted to say about how he felt.
No, you let me talk fine. Look, I'll say this about the running back situation. I have a tough time giving up anything of value if you're not going to sign Jonathan Taylor, and I don't think you can afford to sign Jonathan Taylor with the way some of the contracts are. But I just go back to my final thing today is.
Well, I think the question becomes: is there another team that's willing to sign Jonathan? And
I mean, it hasn't proven out that they are.
Right, and so if that's the case, then I think that the cost ends up being. It starts at what you're going to get back when the compensatory pick ultimately in the Jonathan Taylor conversation.
I mean, it does. I mean, look, if they could get him for a 3rd round pick, a 4th round pick, yeah, I'm doing it. If it's going to take a 1st round pick or even a 2nd round pick, I'm probably not. I think that's too much of a price to pay for a guy that you're going to let go to get to then maybe get a 3rd or a 4th round pick back as a comp pick.
But you also might be 2 weeks away from Melvin Gordon, Kenyon Drake, an undrafted free agent that's never played in the NFL, and whatever other scrub you can pick up off the heap being your running back room. if Gus
know,
Edwards were to get hurt.
Keaton Mitchell will be fine.
I hope so, but you also were the guy that believed in every other one of these guys. You're also the guy that believed that Tyson Williams could be an answer, and Nate McCrary, and I know it's personal, but Tyler Beatty, I got to put him on the list too. Like, you're also the guy that's liked every single one of these dudes.
But every single one of these dudes, I don't know if they could do it or not. They don't get opportunities because
nobody seemed to think they could.
I have a question.
All right.
How many and I don't know, and this is a serious question. This goes back to the third down pass in overtime.
You're not over that. I get it. I get it.
No. I don't well because here's what I don't understand. I understand if you didn't want to run the ball there with one of your running backs, but it seemingly early on, and you'll have to excuse me because I went back and forth between the Orioles and the Ravens today. But it seemed early on that there were more called running plays for Lamar today than we've seen in other games.
Yes, there were definitely.
So what's wrong with that play there?
Okay, here's why. Let's go ahead and do this, you and I.
Yeah,
why are you so worked up about a call that worked? The ball hit Isaiah Likely in the effing chest. He had his hands on the ball. You are worked up about a call that worked.
It didn't work.
It did work.
Because four things have to go right for it to work.
No, everything went right. One thing went wrong.
Right. Exactly. So it did work.
On your level, you're imagining another play. You're inventing some other play that definitely works.
You know what works? Letting the best player on your team, letting the best player on your team do it himself because he can.
But they were also bringing a lot more pressure as the game went on. A team that was never blitzing was bringing tons more pressure as the game went on. The Ravens dialed up a short pass that hit the receiver in the chest.
In the chest. And he didn't catch it.
The chest.
And he didn't
catch the ball.
Everything you say is 100% correct.
Why is it that's on the play call?
Except he didn't catch the ball.
I understand that, but you're mad about the call. Why are you not mad at Isaiah Likely for dropping the ball?
I don't like the call, period. I don't like the call in any year on third down. If I know I'm going on fourth down, I don't like throwing the ball. And
plays that work.
Lamar Jackson, you paid him $300 billion because he's the best athlete on the field
to a spot, and the guy dropped the ball.
No, wrong, because you're relying on somebody that you've thrown one ball to the entire year.
I don't care who you are, Ken. You're trying to come up with an excuse for any player in the NFL.
I don't like the call. I didn't like it. I didn't like it last year.
Like that.
I didn't like it 2 years ago. I didn't like it 5 years ago. I didn't like it 10 years ago. You're going. Run the freaking ball. Maybe you make it 4th and 1, and you have more options. Just give the ball to your best runner, to your best player. The guy that ran 2 touchdowns the guy that ran for 70 yards or whatever he did, and let him make a play.
He's also a pretty good thrower of the ball. I'm not sure if you're aware.
By the way, Ken, he ran for 101, not 70.
I'm sorry. I told you I was watching the Orioles. He ran for 101, and if he runs for 105, they win the game. But you didn't let him run for 105 because
if Isaiah Likely catches the football that hit him in the chest. Why are you so No, it hit him in the chest. Why are you so unwilling?
Casey, why can't both things be true? Because I understand.
No,
I definitely would have preferred that they passed.
You're relying on a lesser player to bail you out.
No, but you're talking about
just like everybody else on that team. He got to step up.
Time out here. Hold on, Ken. Yeah, Isaiah Likely, if they run the ball, is going to have to throw a block there. Is there not just as much likelihood that he screws that up versus dropping the pass? Like
that hit him in the chest.
Like all of these guys can make mistakes.
Like you did the entire rest of the game.
KZ,
spread them 5 wide, get Lamar there, let him pick his hole, and let him go for 7-8 yards.
I don't disagree with you.
I don't understand bringing everybody to the line of scrimmage within 5 yards again. Well, it was Greg Roman in the stadium. Everybody within 5 yards of the tackle box. So the entire defense is there and running 3 yards. And yes, it hit him in the hands. There's a guy draped on his back.
No,
Yes.
stop
KZ,
trying to make excuses
there's
for
young
this.
players all over the field for this
can
team.
understand.
There's a young
I
receiver.
am-
There's young
I am
players in the
so-
line.
I'm
Anybody
tired
could
of
make
this
a
call.
mistake.
I would have been
Anybody
upset.
could make a mistake like that.
I'm upset with the call.
No, no.
Understand this.
Wait.
Understand this. I'm not upset because it didn't work. I'm upset because they do this constantly on 3rd down when they know they're going on 4th. If the worst thing that can happen is you pick up 0 yards and it's still 4th and 3.
Actually, if you're running a play, it could end up being 3 yards of a loss, and then you've got 4th and 6, and all of a sudden you're in a much worse situation where you might not be able to go for it on 4th down, or you could draw up a play that works and hit a receiver in the chest and have him drop the ball.
Also, we're still not
and
recognizing that this is an offense that is not the offense that we've had the last few years. You're just expecting them to run the ball at all costs.
Right.
And they can't really do that
by the way-
with the quarterback.
And by the way,
running backs behind him too to be a threat so that they're not keying on the quarterback for a run play.
The separation
this is a different
here,
offense.
Yeah,
Casey.
the separation here, Ken, is that your theory is one that I've long agreed with. The idea of if you're planning on going for it on 4th down, then. But I still think there's room for debate about whether they should have been going for it on 4th down there. They were acting like there was a minute left in the game, and if they didn't get that, then all of a sudden they were doomed to a tie. And that wasn't the case. They still had timeouts. There was still a 2-minute warning. And the last time they had pinned the Colts back, we remember what had happened. So we can debate whether or not they should have been going for it on 4th down at that point, which I would argue it's not just hindsight, but in the moment it felt forced. I understood the Colts going for it on 4th down. They're the Colts. They've got nothing to lose. They're playing on the road. They should do that. The Ravens going for it on 4th down was way more reckless in that situation. So I don't know. I don't know when the decision was made to go for it on 4th down.
You don't think it was pre-done?
I don't know about that, Ken, because if they were so hell-bent on going for 4th down, I think that's insane. I think that's more.
Glenn, I agree with that. I agree with that.
It's crazy to me. We're talking like there was 3 minutes and 25 seconds still left in the game at that point. There was still going to be a 2-minute warning. They still had a timeout. It wasn't even. Yep. If the Colts had gotten a 1st down, they weren't going to get the ball back.
And I'm not disagreeing with that part of it. I agree with everything you just said. I'm not saying that they had to go for 4th down.
What I'm saying is when you're down by wait a second, when you're down by 3 and you're in that situation, when you're down by 3 outside of field goal range with a minute left and you've got to convert, then I'm way more into your conversation of, hey, you got 2 downs to get 3 yards. Go ahead and run it on 3rd because you know you're going for it on 4th. I don't know with certainty that they knew they were going for it on 4th down there. I think that's a decision that comes up. You try to run your best plays to keep a drive going. They ran their best play. Again, the one that hit the receiver in the chest. We don't want to talk about for some reason. And then when that didn't work, they made a decision. You're suggesting it was premeditated, and I'm not going to agree on that because the circumstances dictate that it would be insane to be thinking about we need 2 downs to get this because the game wasn't
over. So you didn't like them going for it on 4th down there? I
was far more torn about them going for it on 4th down. I was far more torn. Given how they have struggled to run the ball, I was way more torn about the decision to go for it on 4th down. We had just watched them pin the Colts down deep at the end of regulation and leave them in a mess. And with 3:25 remaining, this thing where we all start calling plays like we're playing Madden and nothing matters. Like there's an NFL game at stake here. What are the Colts going to do? I get it. Assuming that Jordan South's going to pin them back at the 2 again, it's difficult to do. But let's just say probably inside the 10 from there. I think there's a more than warranted debate. I get they had just completed a deep ball to Pittman on the previous possession, and maybe they could have dialed something up like that. But I don't know if they're willing to start opening it up the same way at that point. I don't know. I think there's a far greater debate to be had about the decision to go for it on 4th down with 3:25 left in the game. Like that, we're pretending like it was an obvious thing to do. I don't think it was.
I'm not pretending it was obvious. I'm saying that they knew that it appeared to me like there was. it appeared to me like
ESPN wants to feed me an ad so I can see the box score from today's game. Thank you, ESPN. Yeah, my apologies to everyone. Certainly not as bad as other interruptions we had today.
I just if your argument there, it just to me looked like they didn't hesitate, like they just went back in the huddle and ran the next play. It didn't look like.
Well, I don't think they should have called their timeout because they were going to need the timeout. I don't think that was a smart thing to do. I don't to assume that they had 2 plays called there. Maybe I don't know. I don't know if that was asked. I didn't see an answer to that.
No.
But I think that would be reckless to be thinking that way. I think in that situation, you're thinking we need to convert this right here, and then depending on what the circumstances are. Like if Lamar Jackson gets sacked on 3rd down, are you still going for it on 4th? Like, I don't think you've premeditated anything in that spot. I think you're making that call given what the circumstances are. They made the call that they did. And again, for what it's worth, the play that they drew up, consecutive plays they drew up there, both worked. It's just that one was dropped and the second one went uncalled. Like, we have to acknowledge those things. We can't try to rewrite history to fit narratives. Like, they drew up. Because I understand that's what you like to do, Ken. I understand eternally that you will be the man that will choose to try to rewrite history to fit narratives. But that's not what occurred on those 2 plays. On those 2 plays, they drew up 2 plays that worked, and yet they had no first down to show for it. So what does that say? That's football, man. Like, that's football. And again, probably goes back to why I'm not overly worked up about all of this. Probably goes back to why I'm, it's terrible. Like, it's just unfathomable.
Again, Glenn, people had us at 2-1, had the Ravens at 2-1 anyway.
Right. And the charitable way, Reeta, to your point, the charitable way to look at it is, well, which would you rather be 2-1 with a win over the Colts and a loss to the Bengals, or be 2-1 with a win over the Bengals and a loss to the Colts? And unquestionably, the win over the Bengals is more valuable to the Ravens than a home loss to the Colts is harmful. Like,
but Glenn, here's the thing, and you're right. I agree with that. But once you beat the Bengals, you're like, now we have a home game against a team that shouldn't be that good this year with a backup quarterback in weather that plays in a dome. I want to be 3-0.
None of this makes it, what you're saying. None of it makes any of it today inexcusable. There's no excuse for this. None. But it's just trying to take a big picture. And of course, this is a week where we have a Tyus show, Reeta. Of course it is. Of course, we've got to go out there on Tuesday night after that. Of course. That reminder, you can join us.
So good.
Oh, God.
So good.
Reminder, you can join us Tuesday at Guilford Hall Brewery for the Tyus Bowser Show with Tyus and a special guest starting at 7:00. Also brought to you by Superbook Sports and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. God damn it. God damn it. We got to do that show on Tuesday night. That sucks. But no, it's just the way that I view it. And what I view today, there's no getting around it. That's just, it can't happen. But do I view to it? Love you, buddy. Good to see you. Thanks for hanging out, Ken Zales. Appreciate you, pal. Love you, man. There's KZ still fired up about a play call that worked. Still angry.
Real quick, I've got an update on Bateman limping off the field. This is from Zrebeck that just came out a couple minutes ago.
He said his hamstring. All right, his hamstring tightened up on him, but he felt like it wasn't anything serious. Between Bateman and Edwards, the Ravens will have more injury concerns this week. I didn't see an update on Gus Edwards, which is the weird part.
I didn't either. I've been looking all this whole time, and
presumably that might just be because the answer is, he was in concussion protocol, and so he'll have to go through the steps this week, and it might just very well be that that's what the answer is, and so we don't need it to be said because we all know what the answer is, but they just would like to be more defined, but presumably that means he'll spend the next couple of days in concussion protocol, and then we'll get an answer when there is one to be had about Gus Edwards. Yuck. Be really nice to start getting some players back next week. Be really, really helpful for this team if they could start getting some guys back on the field, right? Hey, Troy. You all right?
I'm so good. I'm just listening along.
Hi, buddy. I appreciate you hanging out with us. All right. I think we've covered everything that we can. Is there anything else from this game? But you know what? We haven't talked about. Kyle Hamilton reminded everybody today of why we're so high on him, why we think that he can be such a unique weapon. It would be nice if the Ravens had a full complement of players so that they could use Kyle Hamilton more frequently in this sort of Swiss Army knife role. Because you're reminded when he gets those opportunities that Kyle Hamilton is a really special athlete. Just unfortunately, they haven't been able to use him that way.
And that's true. And it felt like that they were utilizing it more because Jabo was out. But you would love to see more of that when you start getting all of the guys back into fold. I would love to see Kyle use more in blitz situations because he was really good.
Right. And, you know, that is the Ajabo thing on top of Owe. Like at the quarter pole of this season, you would have liked to have felt some comfort about your edge rush, like that there was something there. And what instead we got was a good game from Adafe Owe, and now we're playing the waiting game to see where they are there. So that's something that we'll have to monitor again moving forward. I don't think there are a whole lot of other bright spots. You know, you gotta, if we said one other thing, it would be, I thought Brandon Stevens made a couple of plays late. I think that he has performed a little bit above the expectations that I had for him coming into the season. I think that's been a positive for this team. I don't want to oversell that and suggest that like I'm extraordinarily comfortable with Brandon Stevens. Think he's a high-level starting corner in the NFL, but I think he's played a little bit better than I expected him to coming into the year. And, you know, you gotta tip your cap to Matt Gay, man. Like, you know.
I guess. I'm not interested in tipping caps to nobody on the other side, Glenn.
I
will tip my cap to Brandon Stevens. I definitely think he has overachieved thus far. He's a hitter. I like the kid. And I mean, it's unfortunate that, you know, he doesn't have the help that we'd like him to have, but ultimately he's played well thus far.
I hear you. All right. Thank you all for hanging out with us. We will continue to try to make this better as we move forward. Andrew Steck, is there anything else you wanted to say? The Orioles, the magic number's down to 3. That's the only thing that really matters today, right?
Yeah,
that is exciting.
Correct.
That is very exciting. It's I just sent out a tweet a few minutes ago. Division titles are pretty precious to me, man. There haven't been a lot of them in my lifetime.
Right.
So Glenn will likely clinch if we win tomorrow night, maybe Tuesday.
The Orioles don't play tomorrow.
They played them. Earliest it can happen is Wednesday.
Weird day off.
Wednesday's the earliest.
Win since 1997, guys.
Yeah. All right. Appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. We will work on our policies for this moving forward. Reeta at the NFL Chick, of course, Gridiron Gals. And Winning Drive, I know will be up soon. And we will see you Tuesday night, all right?
Yes. Can't wait.
See you, Tyus Bowser Show. Thanks again to helpmygamblingproblem.org and to Superbook Sports. Again, 3 points. Pittsburgh is dogs on the road tonight. So get to Superbook Sports. Use the code GlennClark23. And when you do, you will get up to $250 in a same-day first bet match, win or lose with Superbook. We will see you guys next Sunday following Ravens-Browns. This has been